What if love wasn't just an emotion you feel, but a force that could break down the barriers between you and the divine? What if every longing glance, every ache of the heart, was a message from something higher, a spiritual compass guiding you toward transcendence? In a world where love is often reduced to fleeting romance or shallow sentimentality, the 13th century mystic poet Jalal ad-Din Rumi, known simply as Rumi, invites us into a far deeper mystery. For Rumi, love is not just human or divine, it is the bridge between the two. It is the fire that burns the ego, the wine that intoxicates the soul, and the dance that leads us home. So today, we're diving into the beating heart of Rumi's poetic legacy, love. Was it divine, human, or something beyond either category? And how did his vision of love evolve across his major works? From the ecstatic whirls of the Masnavi to the soul-drenched ghazals of Divan-e Tabrizi. Welcome to the unfolding journey, where we explore literature, philosophy, spirituality, and the wisdom traditions that continue to shape the human spirit. If you're someone who seeks depth, meaning, and transformation, you've found your people. Let's take a deep breath and step into the radiant universe of Rumi. Before we explore Rumi's concept of love, it's important to understand the context in which his poetry bloomed. Born in 1207 in what is now Afghanistan and raised in the city of Konya, present-day Turkey, Rumi was a scholar, theologian, and jurist. But everything changed in 1244 when he met Shamsi Tabrizi, a wandering mystic whose intense spiritual presence shattered the boundaries of Rumi's orderly world. Their bond was more than friendship. It was a spiritual combustion that awakened something vast in Rumi. After Sham's mysterious disappearance, Rumi's grief transformed into an ocean of poetry. That loss, that longing, gave rise to some of the most sublime verses in literary history. In this crucible of love and loss, Rumi's conception of love evolved from the personal to the universal, from romantic yearning to divine union. Rumi's earlier collection of poetry, Divan-e Tabrizi, is filled with the kind of ecstatic language that makes it nearly impossible to separate human passion from divine devotion. The poems speak to an overwhelming love, often addressed to the beloved, who may be Sham's god or both. The moment I heard my first love story, I started looking for you, not knowing. How blind that was. Lovers don't finally meet somewhere. They're in each other all along. This blurring of the human and divine beloved is intentional. Rumi uses the metaphor of romantic love to hint at the ineffable. God's presence hidden in human form, divine beauty clothed in earthly garments. In this stage of his writing, love is mystical intoxication. The Sufi imagery of wine, taverns, and drunkenness recurs often, not as hedonism, but as a metaphor for losing the self in the overwhelming presence of God. I want to see you, know your voice, recognize you in you. First come round the corner. The yearning here feels personal, intimate, but it points to the deeper desire for spiritual reunion with the source. Later in his life, Rumi composed the Masnavi, a 6-volume spiritual epic often called the Quran in Persian. While Divan-e Shams is wild and ecstatic, the Masnavi is structured, didactic, and filled with parables meant to guide seekers. Here, love becomes a means of transformation, a force that burns away the ego and prepares the soul for union with the divine. One of the most well-known stories is that of the reed flute, from the very first lines of the Masnavi. Listen to the reed and the tale it tells, how it sings of separation. The reed's lament is the soul's longing to return to its origin. Cut from the reed bed, it mourns its exile. This pain is not just sorrow, it is holy yearning. Love, for Rumi, is what draws the soul back to God. Love is the astrolabe of God's mysteries. In this stage, love is not just about ecstasy. It is also about purification, surrender, and growth. It becomes a path of discipline and selflessness, not just passion. Importantly, Rumi does not reject human love. Rather, he sees all forms of love, from romantic desire to the love of nature, friends, or teachers, as reflections of the divine. They are steps on the ladder, not the final destination. In both Divan-e Shams and the Masnavi, we see a recurring motif. Human love is not something to be shunned or demonized. Instead, it is often a gateway to divine love. This is a uniquely Sufi insight. Where some religious traditions may caution against the dangers of desire, Rumi sees in it a hidden potential for transcendence. The minute I heard my first love story, I started looking for you. This idea of using the human experience of love to reach the divine is part of a larger Sufi tradition where the world is not a prison but a mirror. When we fall in love, we glimpse something eternal in the other person. That beauty, that magnetism, is not just theirs, it's borrowed from the one. So, Rumi is not asking us to deny our feelings. Instead, he's asking us to trace them back to their source. A central figure in all of this is Shamsi Tabrizi. But who was he? Was he merely a friend, a lover, a spiritual teacher? Scholars debate endlessly, but in Rumi's poetry, Shams becomes something more, an archetype of the beloved. When Rumi speaks of Shams, he's speaking not only of the man, but of the face of God he glimpsed in him. You are the soul of the universe, and your name is love. This identification of Shams with the divine shows how Rumi collapses the boundary between the human and the transcendent. Love for a person becomes indistinguishable from love for God. The beloved becomes the divine mirror. For Rumi, love is not static. It is a force that moves, spins, and dances. This idea found physical expression in the whirling dervishes of the Mevlevi order, which Rumi's followers founded after his death. The dervish dance is a metaphor for the soul spinning toward the divine. Dance when you're broken open. Dance if you've torn the bandage off. Dance in the middle of the fighting. This ecstatic motion expresses Rumi's conviction that love is the engine of the universe. It draws everything back to its source. Even suffering, in his view, is a kind of grace, because it cracks us open to let the light in. So how does Rumi's view of love evolve across his major works? In Divan-e Shams, love is a fire, painful, ecstatic, overwhelming. It disrupts the soul, intoxicates it, and leaves it yearning. In the Masnavi, love becomes a path, one that requires patience, surrender, and discipline. It is still passionate, but now tempered by wisdom. By the end of his life, Rumi moves from love as separation and longing to love as union and identity. The lover and the beloved are no longer separate. The drop realizes it is the ocean. I am not this hair. I am not this skin. I am the soul that lives within. Why does Rumi still speak to millions of readers around the world, centuries after his death? Because his concept of love transcends time, religion, and culture. He shows us that love is more than sentiment. It is a sacred technology, a path to the truth. Whether you call it God, the universe, or the mystery, Rumi reminds us that every longing, every heartbreak is a doorway. In an age of spiritual confusion and emotional fragmentation, Rumi offers a way of integrating the heart and the soul, human and divine, into one unified path of love. If you felt something stir in you as we explored the depths of Rumi's poetry, if you found yourself yearning, questioning, or simply curious, that's the call of the beloved. And that's exactly what we do here at the Unfolding Journey, exploring the wisdom that calls to our deeper selves. Every week, we take on big ideas and sacred texts, all with one purpose: to grow, to awaken, and to remember who we are. So if this resonated with you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new exploration. And now, I'll leave you with this final line from Rumi. With life as short as a half-taken breath, don't plant anything but love. Until next time, stay open, stay curious, and stay in love.